We love telling stories of recovery because hopefully that will inspire you who may have a loved one dealing with addiction that recovery is possible, and it's always possible. Thank you for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals. I'm Randall Carlisle, your host. Nicole Slack is my co-host. Hello, Nicole.
Hello.
And AJ Collette is our star today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. And you heard what I just said, and it's very true, because I think a lot of people who deal with people who are in addiction are frustrated, angry, sad, whatever, but recovery is possible. Would you say anyone can recover?
I would. I'd say that everybody's recovery looks different. I'd say that probably most folks' recovery on a base level is probably the same, right? It starts out with complete abstinence, and then kind of figuring out what it is, what you did wrong, where it comes from, how to treat it, working through it. And I think over time, for all of us, recovery kind of just looks different. But I think it's possible for anyone. I really do.
But it is hard work, right?
It's extremely hard work, yeah.
That old expression, just say no, just doesn't really work very well.
No, just saying no doesn't. I'd say making that decision, it starts with a decision, right? You make a decision that I'm tired of this. And that decision can be made years before that work actually started. That's how it was for me. I made a decision years before I actually decided to actually commit, right? And so, and now it's just like lifelong, for sure.
Tell us a little bit about your tainted past.
Well, I was on the show like 4 years ago. So revisiting, I'd say the short version is, so I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. I had a broken home. My mom married a Jewish guy when I was 4. And so I converted to Orthodox Judaism at age 4. My name was changed. Over the next 10 years, I flew to Israel. I got abandoned in Israel at a boys' home. My life was pretty crazy as a child. When I was 13, I flew back to America from Israel while my mom and my siblings stayed there because they were trapped. They couldn't leave. And so when I came back here, I didn't know who I was. And I'm just really summarizing here, but I moved back to South Central LA, and I didn't know who I was. And so I started gangbanging and started hanging out with gang members. Got arrested the first time, age 14. Started becoming violent, started doing meth at age 15, and then went to a California State Prison at age 18. The funny thing is, at age 14, when I started this whole lifestyle, age 13, 14, when I started getting in the gangs, I knew I was going to hit the penitentiary when I was 18. Like, that was the goal. It was a plan. And I made sure it happened when I was 18. So, yeah.
Why?
Doesn't make a lot of sense now, looking back at it. Right?
It doesn't make a lot of sense logically, does it?
No.
Explain why people get into gangs. Why did you? Was it your only source of comfort or love or inclusion?
Identity, man. It's what everybody was doing. Again, South LA, it's like the gang capital of the world, right? So there's thousands and thousands of gangs. So going to high school, I hear stories of like kids going to high school around here, and you have like the jocks, like the sports types, right? And then you have like the skaters, but in LA, it was like, what gang are you from, right? Like that's what dominated the high school or the middle school, is what gang were you from? What color are you wearing, right? And so identity, street cred, this notion of respect, this notion of power, maybe even. And also, I think on a base level, just like rebelling against my family. I wanted to hurt them because in my mind at the time, my immature mind, they had hurt me for putting me through everything I went through. Whether it was my grandma or my former stepdad, whoever it was, like they had put me through it, so I'm going to put them through it. And all I did was punish myself, right? But sure. I think in my immature mind at the time, I wanted to like kind of punish them. So I acted out. I got the back of my head tattooed when I was 17.
Turn your head around for the camera there.
It's all covered up. You can't really see it now, but
probably not. But
yeah, my family was pretty mad. They were pissed. Yeah.
What was it like living in Israel? Do you remember?
Yeah, parts of it. I was there. Like I said, I wasn't there for that long. I went to Israel to visit when I was like 5, and then we moved there. We packed up and moved when I was 13. So I was only there for a few months. It's different. Cultural difference. Kids smoke cigarettes. You can be 13 years old smoking cigarettes. They don't ID you, right? We were very religious. But but it was different. I mean, there was like this. So here in the States, there's this traditional like mother-father role. I guess there's a very traditional like the dad kind of, maybe the father leads the family, right? In Israel, like culturally wise, like the father rules, right? And so there was this very obvious change when we got there that we had to listen to everything. My mother, myself, my brother and sister, we had to listen to everything he said, or there was going to be like the serious consequence. I mean, it's the Middle East. It was different. Again, I got out of there pretty quick. They put me in like 3 weeks after we got there. They took my former stepfather, my brother and sister's dad, and his father. They loaded me up in a car. They didn't tell my mom where we were going, and they drove me to what's called the yeshiva. It's a high school, a boarding school. And they dropped me off at this boarding school, and they didn't tell my mom where I was. Later, I found out that my mom never knew where I was. So, like, they essentially kidnapped me, right? And so I was there for like 3 weeks, and I ended up jumping a fence, escaping, catching a ride on an Israeli Greyhound back to my mom's house. And then she flew me back to the States, but she couldn't fly my brother and sister back to the States because they had Israeli blood, and so it's complicated. But yeah, I mean, it was trippy. It was weird.
That's a really weird thing to happen at that age.
Yeah. Yeah.
So who did you live with when you came back to LA?
My grandmother, my grandparents at the time. Yeah.
And how did they react to you getting in gangs and all that kind of stuff?
My grandma and I have come to terms. My grandfather passed away in 2018. He wasn't a fan. He tried. He always tried to get me to work and go to jobs with him and leave that lifestyle alone. My grandmother wanted so badly to believe that every lie I told her was true. And me and my grandmother have done a lot of work. She's actually getting married in like 2 weeks, which I think is awesome. Wow. She's like 76, getting remarried. But me and her have done actually, like, while I did my work, she did her own work. And we've kind of gotten to a spot where we acknowledge that I took advantage of her and she enabled me. And it was this codependent relationship where we both gave and take. And I got away with a lot. And, it is what it is. It's all good. I mean, it's the past, right? I don't blame her for it. She beats herself up a little bit sometimes, and I just tell her you don't need to. It's good. It's the past, right? Like, but yeah, they essentially wanted so badly to believe every lie I told them that they were blinding me. At one point, after I got locked up when I was young, they sent me to Teen Challenge. That was their like attempt to, send me away and have me get some help. Teen Challenge, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's a very Christian-based, militant boys boarding home. They had one up in Reno. They have a few in the States. I don't know if they're still around, but I was out there for 18 months, and when I came back, they had all this hope that I was going to do so great, right? And then a year and a half later, when I'm 18, I go to prison for armed robbery because I was doing drugs and I wanted to steal.
So the program worked really well.
Great. Well, I learned how to do more drugs in there, honestly. But even my first prison term, I did 3 years, and when I got out of prison, they were so hopeful. Like they, helped me get my license, and they brought me a cell phone, and let me move back in. And then I went back to prison 60 days later, 2 months later, right? And so. It wasn't until my third prison term, after I'd had my first daughter, when they kind of were like, you know what, we're done. We're either gonna pick your granddaughter or you. And that's when they like got to the point of changing the locks and really cutting me off. And that was about 6 months before I checked into Odyssey House in 2016. That's when I knew that I was about to lose my family for good. So when they changed the locks and did all that stuff, and so I decided to come get help and checked in, and spent about a year at the adult house, 2016. So.
You said that there was a point that you decided you were going to stop using, but you didn't do that till later.
Yeah.
So what point did you decide to stop using and before you went into treatment?
Yeah, so Randall, my whole life, even when I was really young doing drugs, everyone around me was having kids at a young age. And I always told myself, if I have a kid, I'll sober up. I convinced myself, you could not talk me out of it. I convinced myself that if I simply had a child, I would stop shooting up meth, and I would stop the gang life, and I would just change my life. Like I believed it. And then my first daughter, Patience, when my ex got pregnant with her, so this is about 2 years before I admitted to treatment, I made a decision. I was like, I'm gonna stop doing drugs. 'Cause the day my first daughter was born, I don't remember how many hours my ex was in labor, but we were in the hospital room at McCady in Ogden, and I was in the bathroom shooting up meth.
Oh,
while my ex was in labor. And so like I remember my first daughter being born. I remember details. I don't remember the emotion because I was loaded, right? I was super loaded. But I still had made a decision. I was like, I'm done with this. Right after that point, I was like, I'm done with this. I don't want this anymore. But it took me another, year and a half to actually check into treatment. And then even after spending a year in treatment, when I got out of treatment, I relapsed. A few months later, about 4 or 5 months later, I relapsed for like 2 months, 2 or 3 months. I can't remember. I think 2 or 3 months I went on a run. But then December 13, 2017, was the last time I ever touched drugs. I haven't done any drugs since. And so I think I even though I spent that year in treatment and I still relapsed after treatment, I was able to snap out of it utilizing the tools that I learned when I was in treatment. And it hasn't been easy, man. You know, my wife's at Odyssey. She's technically not a graduate, but she went through the program as well. And so she's been a pillar for me in my recovery and my kids and stuff like that. So
People wonder, people who aren't dealing with addiction, why you relapse. I mean, you go through, you spent a year in a tough program.
yeah,
So why the hell would you?
I know exactly why. I mean, it was another instance of let me hurt someone else or let me hurt myself to show you. I had a DCFS case with my first daughter while I was in treatment. And when I got out of treatment, I was doing well and I stayed sober and we were still going to court. And my ex was still using. She actually had gone to prison and while I was in treatment. And we went to court in October of 2017. And when we went to court, the guardian ad litem, the judge, everyone ruled in favor of me having full custody of my daughter because I've done all this work, right? But then the judge ultimately said, we can't do that. Laws have changed. You'd have to have joint custody. And so your ex, who's still in active addiction, would still have visitation rights to your daughter. And I took that and I said, I'm going to give myself permission to go relapse just to, you know what I mean? Because screw them for not, I'm going to hurt everyone else because they didn't fall in line with my expectation, right? Because they all recommended I should have full custody and I didn't get full custody. Now I'm going to hurt everyone. And all I did was lose custody of my daughter again. She's with my aunt. I lost my opportunity to raise her. But yeah, it was another instance of hurting myself just to I'll show you.
Isn't that weird how, I mean, when I had fights with all of my 4 ex-wives and everything, it's like, well, I'm going to go out and get drunk. And it's like,
Yeah.
wait, all it does is hurt me, and it doesn't do anything to them.
Yeah.
You know.
My daughter would beg me not to drink, but she would do it like in a aggressive and condescending way of like, can't you just not? And why don't you just stop? And so I showed her and drank,
Just get drunk.
But I did it all the time. She would make me so mad because she would just be like, you're just a drunk. And I'd be like, well, then I'll just go be a drunk. I showed her.
And so many people we know who relapse or keep using have that same attitude.
Yes.
And it's so illogical because you're not hurting them, you're hurting you, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
It's just selfish.
it's
Addiction's just selfish.
yeah.
It's all about you.
Yeah, that is very true. And so I just so we don't run out of time, I want to talk about your positive things now because you are on Facebook and I do see pictures of the fact that you now are a happy family moving and you've moved into a brand new home and life is good.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. So it's my wife and I have been married 7 years, and this December will be 7 years substance free.
And she's a wonderful woman too.
Fantastic,
Yes.
fantastic. Shout out Jessica Collette. We started from renting a basement together in a friend's home to living at the Mountain Shadows, which is a ghetto apartment complex.
Don't sue us. He said that.
I said that, sorry. And then we've lived in apartments and struggled because I'm a felon, so getting in apartments has been difficult. But ultimately now I have a career. My wife has a career. We have 5 beautiful daughters. We just we built a new home. We started building it this year. It's out in Tooele, so it's quite a drive, but we have a home. We're homeowners. We're not renters anymore. We have new cars. We have things. We have stocks and investments. We're actually going to set up a trust here in a couple weeks so that we have all of our money lined up, and we're just thinking about the future, thinking about our children, because we don't all live forever, right? And so just making different moves. It's less about like what are we doing this week or what are we doing this month, and like what are we doing in 10 years, right? So yeah, I mean we're blessed. We're very blessed right now. Work is great, and so yeah. Life is good. There's still challenges, man. I've got some health issues that I'm working through, and there's always financial stuff that comes up, and of course, raising children can be fantastic, right?
Oh, yeah.
I've got all girls, so
Even better.
yeah, it is sometimes extremely chaotic in my house. But the
lot of
bottom line is
estrogen
life
in
is
your
good.
house.
Yes. But life is good, man. Life is good. I get to wake up and show up for myself and my family.
And you work at you have the shirt on.
Had to wear it. Yep. Threshold Billing Solutions. Shout out to Threshold Billing Solutions. We do revenue cycle management, billing for treatment centers. About 30 different clients here in Salt Lake and outside of Utah as well. So essentially, in my department, we review clinical necessity for individuals coming into treatment, and I'll look at their chart and determine if they need detox, residential, PHP, or IOP, and then advocate to their insurance to cover their treatment. So that's
so
what I've been doing for the
cool.
last 3 years. But yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah, it's
He's a
great.
bright guy, believe it or not.
Thanks, man.
No, I see pictures of your daughters. What's the age range?
So our oldest is 21. So our oldest is 21, 17. So Nina's 21, Mariah's 17, Alyssa's 13, Kiki's 9, and Mila's 5.
And how aware are they of your past?
Very. There were, because again, mom has a colorful past as well, and that she's worked through. She's got way more clean time than I do, but yeah, they know. I mean, obviously my 5-year-old doesn't, and my 9-year-old has some memory because she went to I can't remember what it's called, the daycare here when we were in parents program, CS. But the older girls, they know.
How do you approach a topic like that? Do they bring up questions? Do you tell them? What do you say? Because obviously you don't want them going down the same path you did. So
We actually had a situation about 2 years ago with one of my older daughters, and she was getting into ditching school and a little bit of marijuana and stuff like that. And so I found that I was actually able to recognize the behavior really easily, which is awesome.
takes one to know one.
It takes one to know it.
Yeah.
But I was able to just call her out, but in a way that was like supportive and let me talk to you and I don't want to sit here and shame you. And I'm not going to, we're not going to talk about punishing you and taking everything away, but let's talk about like how terrible life is if you continue doing this, right? Look at my life, look at mom's life, look at what we've done, right? And it's also kind of hard to find that balance because it's easy for them to be like, well, if you did it, why can't I? Right?
That's what I would have said when I was a kid.
Yeah, well, do you want to spend 8 years in prison? Do you want to spend 15 years addicted to meth? Do you want to lose everything you own and have to start from nothing? Because that's what's going to happen, right? If you keep going down the path. That's what my experience was, right? So it's pretty straightforward. It's black and white, in my opinion. This is pretty guaranteed you'd screw up your life, or at least mess it up and make it not fun. Or you could just go this way, and life may not be as fun half the time, but guess what? You don't have to worry with prison. You don't have to worry with serious consequences. So I actually found that I was able to have those conversations in a mature way. I was met with resistance a couple times, but ultimately she pushed through. And I'm thankful that I had the feedback and the experience to kind of be able to talk to her about it in a way that was probably beneficial for her.
It's almost like it's almost the way our program works. If you think about it, you have people who are working with our clients who have had a similar background, who have the knowledge and can talk to them, and it makes a difference, right? Well, think about that. Did that make any difference to you? The fact that there were people there who have gone through what you've gone through?
I think at the time, no. I preferred the clinicians that were clinicians.
Okay.
But now I look at it and I see why everyone benefits from that, and I see why they can grow and learn, because I think no matter your story, you pick up things from everyone's story, even if it's just one little thing that they did, and you can grow and learn from it. So yeah, I think you can find different ways to talk to people because you've been an addict.
Yeah, and I was a rebellious teen, and like if I had you as a father and I knew your background, it would be like, how the hell can you tell me not to smoke pot or get drunk or whatever? When you did all this crap.
Yeah. I think the hard one for me, again, I find myself comfortable. It's challenging, but I found myself comfortable having those conversations. The hard one, the argument that I lose is my two oldest daughters have gotten tattoos. And
Yeah, right.
You know, I don't. So I just try to tell them, just please think about what you're getting, and just don't get no boys' names unless you're and just think about what you're doing, and you get what you pay for. But I'm not going to sit here. What can I say, right? That's like the argument that I don't feel like I can win, because they know I started when I was really really young, and yeah.
Yeah.
What can I say? Just don't get anything inappropriate.
Don't do what I did.
Don't do what I did. Slow down. Keep it off the hands. Keep it off the neck. Right. But yeah, I think with the other stuff, it's always going to be a challenge. But I think we have the advantage, individuals with that background for sure.
And you and your wife give back as well, dealing with the recovery community. Tell me describe that and why.
Yeah, so I mean, this is my third year doing the give back with Adolescent House, doing the Christmas dinner. We just did group last Tuesday. We met up for group and talked to the kids, told our story. My wife used to work for Martindale Clinic. She now works for Sacred Circle Healthcare, and so she works in the medical field. She doesn't have an emphasis on behavioral health, but she does serve the underprivileged community, and so we also just try to help people out. I mean, I don't like to talk about this often, but my kids, one thing that they've seen is if you pull over and help somebody that's in need, right? My kids see that when we do that, and I like to keep an extra pair of shoes in my car that I don't care for anymore, or an extra jacket just in case I see someone, right? Again, I don't really like to talk about that stuff, but just doing good acts, helping people out, right? We're really excited, really stoked because we have our neighbors like 2 doors down. They're not from this country, and they don't have any family here. And so for Thanksgiving, we have our teenagers who are going to show up and eat and leave. That's just they've already asked what time is dinner because they're going to show up and eat and leave. I did it when I was a teenager. Right? I don't want to spend the whole day, but we're going to have these guys come over and hang out and just be social and eat and I don't know, just be nice to people, man. Be kind to people. I think that's the biggest thing that my wife and I try to teach our children is to just be kind to people.
Why is it people in recovery do work hard on caring about other people?
Can't keep what you don't give away, right?
Well, I've heard that expression at many meetings.
I think most of us have been there, right? Like we know what it's like to be judged, to be spit on, to be ignored, to be ridiculed, or just to be looked down on, right? Whether it's by other people, by the community, by the state or government, right? Whatever that looks like. I think we've all been there, and I think it's safe to say that most of us that have struggled with addiction have had a point where we just wished that everybody else could understand how bad it hurt, right? Like how bad it, like I realize I'm hurting myself, and it may look like I don't care because I'm putting off this attitude that I don't care who else I'm hurting, but I'm really hurting inside, and I couldn't communicate that at a point in my life. And so now I think having gone through it, I think looking back, it's like, just be nice to people, just be kind, because you don't know what somebody's going through, right? I lost a really, really close friend in February of this year to an overdose. And he was going through some stuff, and I don't know what that all is, and that's fine. But you just don't know, man. You don't know what people are going through. And so just be kind. I think that's my message, my ultimate message, just be kind to people, man.
I think a lot of people look upon people dealing with addiction as sort of like the scum of the earth. You're weak. There's just a lot of negative emotions that surround that. People who have never had any contact with people in addiction, which is a false pretense. When you're, I mean, were you happy
when I was strung out?
Yeah,
sometimes.
Well,
so, I mean, at the end, no. For many years at the end, I was not.
Well, it's the same thing of getting drunk. I mean, okay, if I'm a bunch of people and we're all drunk, it's like, I think we had a good time.
Yeah, I had some good times in some garages, but ultimately, no. I don't know. No.
And you wouldn't be doing it if you were totally happy with life.
Sure.
And yourself.
Right. I think at the time I didn't know what that looked like, how to configure what that, like I didn't know what was missing. Right. I definitely will say that the last 3-4 years of my addiction, I was legitimately unhappy always because I was just tired of it. I had gone to prison 4 times. I was using in prison, using out of prison. Every time I've ever paroled from prison, the day I parole, I shot up meth every single time. I don't care if I had to see my PO the next day. My excuse to them was I used while I was in jail before I got out. Sorry. And it worked because they would say next UA you have to be clean, and then I'd find ways to cheat UAs. This building right across the street, right over here, this federal building. Me and those guys are friends. We used to be, but no, I can legitimately say the last 3 or 4 years I was depressed. I was suicidal. And matter of fact, that the very last day I ever used, I was hoping for a suicide by cop. I went out. It's a really short story. I went out with a fake gun, where a location in Roy where my buddy had gotten shot and killed. And I took a fake gun and I did a bunch of drugs and I was suicidal and I left the house and I went in there and in my mind, I just didn't want to live. And I was going to get the cops called on me, and I had it planned out. And when they showed up, I was going to reach for this gun that looked real, and they were going to shoot me. And that was my plan. And somehow, playing one of those stupid slot machines that they used to have, the illegal slot machines here in Utah, and I was sitting there, and I didn't hear the door ding. I didn't hear the keys. I didn't hear the radio. I didn't hear anything. All I felt were 2 hands on me. And on both sides of me was Roy police, and they said, stand up. And when they stood me up, I said, I have a gun on me, right? And so, I believe it was a divine intervention, right? Because I should have heard him. I was paranoid. I was tweaking. Again, I didn't hear anything indication for me to turn around and see them so I can get up and follow through with my plan. Yeah. Like I had a plan. And I just felt hands on me, and I couldn't follow through my plan. And so that's why I've never touched meth again. And I mean, that's a lot of people don't know that whole story in detail. But yeah, man, the last 3 or 4 years, I was definitely in the darkest place I've ever been in my life, alone.
I thought of suicide frequently towards the end. Nicole, you unsuccessfully tried to kill yourself.
Yeah. I was super unhappy for a really long time. So, yeah.
And you were and you must have been thankful later on, but you were pissed off when you woke up in the hospital.
Yeah, I woke up first at my house and was like, you have got to be kidding me. Like, I even failed at this. Like, I'm awake. And yeah, no, I was really upset. I did not want to be awake. So, yeah, I understand that moment of just feeling really low and just being done.
Mm-hmm. And I hope people watching or listening understand that, and you were drinking at the time, mm-hmm. You were drugging at the time, I was drinking at the time, and none of us were sitting there going, wow, life is really great, mm-hmm. right?
You're so depressed, and then alcohol's a depressant.
Yeah.
But that was my cure.
It's a fantastic combination.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah.
Well, you are a very responsible person in recovery, AJ.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming in and sharing your story. The image stuck in my mind of you being in the restroom of your ex-wife's hospital room while she's delivering, and you're shooting up meth.
Not ex-wife, ex-girlfriend. But
ex-girlfriend. Okay.
Yeah.
That shows you how hardcore it was.
Yeah. That was definitely an eye opener, man. And yeah, I took drugs, just so I was ready to go, and doesn't really make a lot of sense. If you think about it, right? I mean, it's a beautiful moment. You're having a child that's coming into this world. I mean, when my youngest daughter Mila was born, 2019, I cried, right? And I was there with my wife Jessica when she delivered, and I cried because of the moment, how intense it was, right? And I also freaked out because anyway. And but yeah, it's like the logic behind, like, I'm going to bring some meth and a syringe into a hospital, and I'm going to go shoot it up right before the doctors come in, and I'll be fine. Like, it's insane. No logic at all. But that's where I was at in life at the time, because that's what I did. So
that's why we tell these stories. So I would urge all of you watching or listening not to make any rash judgments about people who are dealing with addiction, but instead encourage people to seek recovery. So thank you, AJ.
Of course.
Nicole, and thank you for watching or listening to another edition of Odyssey House Journals.